Hello everyone. Um, Welcome back to another video. Um, so you can see I haven't done one of these in a very long time, and well, yeah, that's just because number one, you notice that the setup of this looks a lot different. And the reason for that is basically because I really, really, um, just I was gonna do my normal setup, but for now I can't do that. So I just tried this new setup that I have right now, and it seems to be working fine for the video content. So that's all that really matters. But number two, the reason why I haven't uploaded as much, basically, is just because I've been busy with a lot of schoolwork, a lot of different, a lot of different studies, homework being one of those type of things. So those have been getting in the way for a majority of things I've been trying to do, and yeah. So oh yeah, and also number three, I've been working on a lot of music recently, and the music that I've been making is on my other channel X Divide. In case I don't know, you're not subscribed or something, or maybe this is your first video. Who knows? But I don't know when this is gonna be uploaded, but well, anyway, this is a video I've been wanting to do for quite a while. Um, Me talking about my spiritual journey. Now, when I say spiritual, a lot of you refer to spirituality. A lot of you people think of spirituality is what I'm talking about. In this case, yes, this is what I'm talking about. But I'm going to also be talking about mainly why I came out of spirituality entirely and what I found to be what set up the establishments of me coming to Christianity instead. And basically, what you have to remember is that spirituality is just like new age religion stuff, essentially combining. For what my interpretation of it is, kind of like combining spiritual elements of Christianity with also spiritual elements of Satanism. So there's a lot of different ideas that are truths but also lies. And you can't have both without, having a lie. A lie and a truth is just a lie. So that's how that works. I'm not gonna be talking about my whole life story in this video. However, I have talked about my previous life in many other videos talking about Christianity and what's not. And I talked about in my testimonies all that in my childhood. I'm not going to be talking about that here because that would be a very long time to get through. And that's not really what this video is about. And also stay tuned for my next video where I am going to be talking about something else that's very personal for me, but I feel like I'm gonna be making that video very soon because I want to kind of get that out whenever I do get the chance to make that video. So I really wanted to kind of come out of a state of depression, anxiety that I was kind of faced with at the time. And I didn't really have any other methods available to me. And so really I was kind of faced with a very challenging point in my life where because of my high school career, if you could say that, my high school status, I wasn't really the best suited kid in the whole place. Put it that way. I had a lot of problems growing up, a lot of problems that really kind of hindered me from being, I guess, successful or, well, not successful, but from being like everyone else or being able to fit in, because I was always different. Everyone says they're different these days, but you know, when I say that I'm different, I like to refer to more so the fact that I didn't have things in common with other people, right? I didn't have many, I had very few interests in things that people liked doing. And, I was always one of those kind of kids that just kind of was just in a very dark place. Uh, I don't know, I was always very imaginative and pretty much I had tried to fit in with people, but I wasn't very good at it. And essentially, it took me a long time before I was able to realize these things, that I wasn't meant to fit in with people, that I wasn't meant to do these things. Spirituality did teach me that. Um, and that was kind of the reason why I got into it, because I was emotionally invested in the idea that, I don't have to be like anyone else, that I don't have to care what people think, I don't have to care what these people are trying to tell me. And that was what spirituality kind of did for me. It kind of brought me into a state of comfort where I didn't really feel like I had to be someone else to be happy, but I could be myself, and I would be pretty much satisfied with who I was. I got into spirituality, and it was pretty much something that I enjoyed doing, but it wasn't really something I got too invested in, thank God. Um, the extent of my spiritual practices that I would engage in were kind of just like light meditation, um, some manifestations here and there, but I didn't really get anything out of it. Some people get really deep into these type of stuff. For me, it wasn't something that I was invested in for a long time to really start feeling the effects of. When I was doing these spiritual things, I was still very new to the concepts, and I want to say my spiritual journey was about half a year, maybe a year at most. Because I remember I started doing it around September of 2020, and it kind of went until June of 2021, but that's just a rough estimate. I mean, I honestly don't remember much of it. It was more so something that I was just invested in. I remember during the summer, no, it was something I got invested during the fall, and then I started actually acquiring and using these practices during the winter time when I was just starting out. But then around the summer, I kind of stopped doing it. So it really was less than a year I was really into it. But when I was engaging in these spiritual things, like I said, I was just kind of trying to find a sense of meaning in it. I wasn't doing it to manifest really anything in my life. I was just trying to find peace in myself. I was just trying to find my purpose. I was asking the universe those kinds of questions. My concern wasn't ever to gain anything from doing this. It was more so just so I could feel like I achieved something in my life, like I had a purpose. And these are questions that I would ask the universe at the time. I would ask about, you know, what is my job going to be like? What am I going to be when I grow up? These are things that I would ask certain objects. I remember I would ask the trees about these things. I would kind of, in my mind or something, I would feel like I'm having a conversation with these trees. Or I would be talking to like spirits that had like past lives that they reincarnated. And this was a concept that I learned about, that theoretically, you reincarnate as something else when you die. This is something that Christianity will quickly disprove of, and for perfect reasoning. I do believe in that. I don't think that reincarnation actually exists, and I think the idea of treating your life as though you will have a second chance is very damaging. At the end of the day, it really just devalues your life. Because when it comes down to it, you'll never have these experiences again. You only live once, and there's some reason why people say you only live once. People aren't lying to you about that anyway, but there are many things that people will lie to you about. So this was around the time where I started to break away from my old habits that I was kind of engaging in at the time. And I was benefiting a lot from going outside and doing sort of more engaging activities. I was exploring nature as well, some things that I just was not doing before spirituality. And that was kind of the start of me being able to um, desiring to exercise and being able to want to go outside as well. So it did definitely help break away from my addictions. That I'm not gonna lie and say that I've completely broken out yet, but for the most part, it distracted me from doing the things that I was really extremely obsessed with at the time. And thankfully that I have a reason to go outside, because it brought my attention to other hobbies and habits that I can do instead of spending all my time inside, which we all know is not a good thing for your mental health and not good for anyone to stay in the house all day. Another thing, I was also just very happy as well that I was going outside as well. I was kind of feeling a lot happier about myself, and I just felt like I was doing a lot better mentally, physically as well, and finding peace within myself, learning how to like myself, learning to love myself. These were also things that I learned during spirituality to do, and while some of it I will admit is healthy for you to do, and not there's nothing wrong in basic concepts of doing them. Christianity would teach me how to use those ideas and reasons of logic and apply them to a more spiritual route instead of a more personal execution of them. But around spring or so is when I would label the fall of spirituality was for me. I saw a lot of the channels that I was watching really just kind of not sit right with me anymore. I'm not going to mention specific names because I don't want to give off hate toward those channels or anything. I mean, I don't want to imply that these people are terrible people. I would assume that they're just confused, as I was, and my least concern would be to want to spread hate to these people that are probably still confused, or who knows, but there's still time to repent. I don't think any of these people were purposely doing this. But my reasoning for deconstruction of spirituality was pretty much led on by a lot of things that I was being taught. I looked into a lot of the things that I was being taught because I was one of those people that kind of spread a lot of the information I was learning from these spiritual people to my parents and my other siblings. And I ended up realizing how foolish and silly a lot of these things that I was saying to them. A lot of the stories they make up, and a lot of things involving like evolution and how people perceive themselves or how they perceive God, and all these different theories. At that point, when I realized how wrong I was for these beliefs, was when I started becoming more critical of the spiritual people I was watching, and even to an extent just kind of discriminating against certain ones that I was watching, and really being critical about the things that they were saying in their videos. So I just pretty much just stayed away from the ones I thought were not giving me good information, and I tried to kind of handpick the ones that were still good and just kind of go from there. Um, a lot of them as well would taught me a lot of astrology and astronomy, and really all I got to say to that is zodiac signs and all this type of stuff. I didn't really gain much from astrology or astronomy as I would have thought earlier. Nowadays, I kind of look at it and just say that these type of signs are just false teachings. That these really are just aren't. That all these things are just explanations as to why people behave differently and why people are these type of ways. When psychologists would psychologists would disagree on these theories and just say that it has to do with genetic factors, or it has to do with um, predispository diseases, how people are brought up, and even your soul, which has its own personality and it desires things. So it really just depends on those instead of zodiac signs. There's nothing to do, I don't believe there's anything to do with your birth or your month, year, or whatever. Because the thing is that there's no proof for any of this stuff. They're just making it up and they're acting as though it's true when there's none of the stuff can be proven. And there's many other different factors that apply to why I kind of left spirituality. But in its main essence, it was the spiritual YouTubers I was watching. That was essentially the main reason why I left. And what that kind of ended up happening was a lot of the spiritual YouTubers I was watching were kind of revealing how much false prophets they were, and if it wasn't one thing that they lied about would happen, that would come to fruition, it was the fact that a lot of them kind of left spirituality, pursued other interests, or really just kind of revealed their dark colors to them, or their evil spirits kind of started revealing themselves. And yeah, really it's a shame, because a lot of these people I kind of looked up to, but when I saw just how false these people were just being led astray and just kind of not involved with this stuff anymore, it kind of just was another layer that kind of showed me just how much this belief is really just a full of nothingness, that there's nothing to be gained with it. And not to mention, this was also the period of time where, but I was also learning about Christianity as well. I was watching a lot of videos with God and finding hope in God. And I feel like the first video I ever watched was about a video about how like God wants to save you or something like that, and God knows your situation. It's kind of enough for me to want to get invested more. I know my mom is kind of another reason why I kind of got into Christianity as well, because she was trying to convince me that it's not a bad religion to get involved with, and she was trying to convince me. I started watching more content that I was getting recommended. By the way, that's how I got involved with spiritualities. I got involved. So how I found God was pretty much a very simple explanation for me. I found God through a kind of vivid dream that I had. And keep in mind, this was around the time where I was still kind of holding spiritual practices within me. For one, I was going to sleep on the floor. But for a while, I believed in it. I slept, pretty much on a flat surface like this room, but I wouldn't sleep on a bed. And I would pretty much sleep with like a pillow, but I wouldn't sleep with anything underneath it. And the idea was that it's pretty much supposed to be like supposed to stiffen your back or whatever, but realistically speaking, you don't need to sleep on the floor to do that. In fact, you're kind of harming yourself by anything because you're more likely to be stiff waking up if you sleep on the floor. And yeah, I had success for it for a while, but I was brought to my attention, presumably by God, who had led me on and revealed how really just um, horrible it is to be doing this type of stuff. It was kind of weird how I stopped doing it, but I had a dream where I I saw God, and I actually saw him while I was struggling sleeping. It was one day where I was just up all night trying to sleep and just trying to get to bed, but I was so just on the floor. I was hopeless, you know. And pretty much what happened was I was just lying on the floor trying to sleep all night, and it must have been like the middle of the night or something because I really felt like a dark presence around me, and it was really just like uncomforting at the at the time. But I saw God because while I didn't see his face, I saw he had like a white robe, if you will, kind of like a white piece of clothing that was like all the way down to his legs or so. But it wasn't a human thing aspect. It just looks like a long robe, if you will, and I'm not sure what you would really call it, but I couldn't see his face. I don't remember if I saw anything else, but he appeared human to me. But all I knew is that I was being saved because in that dream, God was essentially rescuing me from the pits of hell. And it was at that time where I was already engaged in a lot of sin and a lot of addictions that I was going through, and he had brought me to kind of a waterfall area that resembled heaven for me. But I saw the enemies looking down, trying to grab me. And I kind of knew in my heart that he wasn't done trying to get me, um, and it kind of resembled what I'm still going through, which is kind of like spiritual warfare. You know, trying to overcome many challenges that I'm going through, many struggles, but I'm still doing what I can. I'm still keeping strong and whatnot. That was a time when I had given myself to God, and that event kind of symbolized the deep meaning in my heart that I knew God was real. And it wouldn't be until I learned about what sin was um, and what the detriments of sin was that I would truly become born again. Because I was still damned by the sin that I was engaging. I was sure I was a believer in Christ, but I wasn't really. I didn't really fully know God at that time, and it wasn't until I learned about overcoming sin and temptations that really sparked me to become born again. And I would say that was around June of 2021 where I learned about these things, but I don't really know for certain. Regardless, this was pretty much what ended spirituality for me. There was one channel that I did forget to mention. I would kind of watch that channel because it was the only channel that I didn't have any problems with at the time. And I did appreciate his content and whatnot. But as time went on, I kind of fell away from that channel as well, making that the last channel that I would completely wash away from any spirituality reference or anything of that nature. And it was essentially 50-50 for me. The channel was either talking about things that I could personally agree with, or it was talking about things that was either political or just emotionally driven. I just had to get rid of the channel because it wasn't really benefiting me anymore. And how I am right now is kind of a reflection of me being a born again Christian and kind of implementing and understanding spirituality, but also being able to use my knowledge of spirituality to kind of understand the world, I guess, and I guess you could say in both a spiritual understanding and also a Christian aspect of it. I feel as though a lot of Christians don't understand the spiritual side of Christianity, and that's where a lot of people have trouble with discernment, and a lot of people have trouble really connecting to God, because a lot of people that are Christians today are lacking that spiritual side of them. And I believe that's a very important thing, which is why I don't regret having that brief intermission with spirituality, because it helped me understand the spiritual aspects that would eventually come into with Christianity, and that kind of helped me to develop that spiritual side of me and helped me just to get closer with God at the end of the day and just be able to be the person that I am right now. And if anything, I don't argue that being spiritual is a bad thing, but what you use your spiritual capabilities for is another thing entirely. And I just want to wrap up with that. Thank you all for watching. Stay blessed.